Watershed District for 2025 leak monitoring services, revised by our manager.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Item H is taken care of. The new agreement. Okay. Now let's move on to updates and requests from partners, Volunteer Citizens Advisory Committee, Administrator Engineer. T24 Point Intercept Aquatic Plant Survey. Ms. Mag, you're up.
John is going to queue up the presentation that we have to do tonight. It's not that one.
So while he's doing that, can I ask you a very quick question on the Simpson
Diversity.
diversity?
Yeah.
Yeah, the decimals are the higher the number. You bring in diversity, forgive me.
No problem. And what it is like it says the diversity is 0.77. It means there's a 77% chance if you put two hands in the water and pull them up, you're going to have at least two different plant species. And so you always figure if it's more than 50%, it's good. Less than 50% plant chance, less than 50-50, probably not so good. And you know, when we're seeing, 0.77, 0.85 for Valley Branch Lakes, we think, that's nice diversity out there.
We saw some good numbers.
Yeah, good numbers.
We'll be talking about that.
Can you find the plant presentation that says conveyance systems opening up? And I just don't think I can do justice to the presentation. I'm sorry.
Tells me you could go.
I could give it a go, but I don't know. I think I'd have a lot more fun with this plant thing. I don't know if I even know how to do that. Well, he's doing that. This may be of interest to everybody. So I've been communicating with April Londo about zebra mussels in Long Lake. And we asked, have you made a decision? And she said, well, DNR said they would not permit a whole lake treatment unless, she didn't say that. She said, we won't consider it unless you have a whole year of villager monitoring in 2025 in the lake and in the stream downstream. Then we could revisit it. However, she said that she had been to a meeting with Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center in USGS in December, and she did her best to persuade them they should choose Long Lake as a lake for a research project. They want to do a whole lake treatment for zebra mussels as a research project. They've been doing other work and they're ready to go whole lake. And they've got other candidate lakes, but she gave them a good sell on that. And she gave me the contact information for USGS and the graduate student that would be doing the labor work. I've reached out to them. USGS person is out of the office, but the graduate student got back to me with some suggestions for a meeting next week to discuss it. And John and I suggested when she gave some times, and John and I are available at 11 a.m. Wednesday. She mentioned that a lake that had water quality data, plant data, zooplankton data, and information about any management that's been done in the lake, that would give you more points in the selection process. And of course, you used to do zooplankton. We don't have that, but we have a lot of data. So we're going to meet. And I'm also going to throw in a pitch that, well, if zooplankton data are important, you could always go before the Valley Branch Watershed District Board and suggest they add it to the program, thinking, well, if we're thinking of managing this lake, the cost of those analyses are relatively low compared to other things. And if they would be willing to take this project on as a research project and be doing the work and paying for it, that would be wonderful. So, and of course, I have I have 50 years of experience to do phytoplankton, zooplankton, analysis. Where would you find anybody to give you better data than that? So I'll be mentioned, that'll be mentioned humbly, of course, but.
Twist their arm.
But anyway, so I just kind of want to bring everybody up to speed with some the information. We're going to be working on working with them and doing what we can. She did say they're writing a model that will help them in the selection process to select the candidate lake out of the possibilities. And so they hope to get the model written in the next 2 weeks. But apparently some parameters are these data.
So is it at NASERC, is it Mike McCartney that's leading the effort?
She didn't, well, MASERC is an interesting organization. Sometimes they partner with USGS and have them do work. And it sounds like, because she said, she gave me the name of the USGS person who is working on this with this graduate student from MASERC. It reminds me of another project that they did where USGS basically did the work, and then they had graduate student or students from the U with Mazer doing it. It seems like that's it. And Mike was not mentioned. I know Mike.
The USGS person, Mike Jim Luma down at UMass, he does a lot of aquatic toxicity work.
And it wasn't him, it was Deb. I don't remember
It's
her
not
name.
important. I'm more curious.
Yeah, I had not heard her name before.
So, 2 items. Mr. Lavy, did you have a question for me?
I have a comment and a question. When it comes to the meeting of talking with April and the other staff, can you also bring up the, as far as criteria for the selection basis, the risk factor of connected lakes? And then, for the project, I would probably check with Angelique as well. She ran a zebra mussel and villager study for her graduate program to become part of MASIC, and she's there now. So she would, if she's not the lead, she's definitely involved.
Can you send me her contact information?
Yeah, she used to be the head of what was it? St. Croix, they changed their name and I can never remember. Anyway, it was basically the environmental group for the St. Croix River.
Yeah,
But I'll send it to you.
yeah, I'd be glad.
Very good, sir.
Okay, now
Diane Waller was.
Diane Waller is the name they mentioned.
Before you proceed, parlance of Rodney Dangerfield, it feels like an A.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, I am really pleased to present the results of the 2024 Valley Branch Point Intercept Public Plans released tonight. Next slide. Difficult, I don't know why. It really wants me to do that. Oh, and that's. Oh, there we go. We're good. Okay. The map to the left has a bunch of lakes with yellow hatch marks. Those are the lakes that we completed point intercept plant surveys on, and I've got the list, the long list over to the right that includes your main 6 lakes, Silver, Long, DeMontville, Olson, Jane, and Elmo. We also do surveys in the little pond just to the north of Long Lake. We're basically concerned about whether or not there's any gray-water milfoil. We're also checked for the gray-water milfoil in the ponds between Long and DeMontville, middle, south, Long Lake Middle, Long Lake South, and Pond 1. And as a part of water quality studies, Downs Lake and McDonald Lake were also surveyed this year. My presentation will first look at some native plants. We'll look at Eurasian water milfoil or hybrid water milfoil. Some lakes have one, some the other. Clearly pondweed, some other aquatic invasive species. We have some recommendations for the Valley Branch Watershed. This works. We'll get there. With regard to the native plants, all of the lakes, communities met the DNR's plant beautification IBI criteria. And that, the DNR, uses a number of plant species and the quality of the community measured by a tool they call Holistic Quality Index. And they have a minimum number of species that the lake should have and a minimum quality should have to be healthy. All of the lakes met those criteria. All of them had good plant diversity. No, all lakes, not all lakes, but the majority of lakes out there have some fluctuations annually, just natural fluctuations in the frequency of some species. Some years they're up a little bit, down a little bit, all around a little bit. But we do look at statistically significant changes to see if there's anything concerning going on. And so we do compare the previous year and present year, and we did that. We divide those changes into two categories, favorable or unfavorable. Favorable, of course, if you have increases in the frequency of native plant species or declines in frequency of invasive species, filamentous algae, we call that favorable. Unfavorable would be if you have a decline in native species frequency or increases in invasive species. Now, for silver long, the tri-lakes, we saw both, but overall, the result of the changes were good, and they were healthy and diverse plant communities. And I just want to, take a look at, when we do this very objective scientific thing, okay, if you have a significant decline in a native species, that's unfavorable, but those declines really are not at all concerning. Like, for example, in Long Lake, common waterweed, 2% frequency last year. We didn't see it this year. Significant change. I'm not concerned about that. A few years ago, it went from 4% to not seen, and then it came back. So that's unfavorable. That was the only unfavorable thing that happened in that lake, so I'm not too concerned.
Some of that could just be detection probability too, right?
It sure could. I mean, yeah.
Sampling variable.
Sampling variability, but we have tools, statistics, and we use them. Demontreville, we had a significant decline in pork duckweed and aquatic moss. Those are not the killers of the plant community. I'm not too concerned about that. In silver, we had a significant decline in muskgrass. Now, that particular species has been the most frequently seen species every year since 2021, including 2024. So there was less of it this year than last year. I'm not concerned about it. So those are the kinds of things. And we also recognize 2023 was a drought year. 2024, we had a lot of water and we had a really early spring after the winter that never was. And it was, I thought really when we looked at all of those variability, when we looked at the plant community, really, we had a really good plant community and the significant changes really weren't much to write about. And in another minute, we're talking about some of those whole lake Florida treatments. This information is really important to see that your plant communities and natives are doing well. Now, big change. Lake Yelmo is interesting. That is such a rock stable community with no significant changes between 2023 and 2024. We've seen that previously too. It just kind of same. Next. This past couple of years have been so exciting for the Valley Branch Watershed District because after many years of struggling to get just seasonal control and wishing for the opportunity to do whole lake treatments, and we understand the Minnesota DNR has had a lot of conservatism in allowing that, but a couple of years in 2022, 2023, DNR permitted the whole lake treatments for Demontreville and Olson. And in 2023, 2024, the whole lake treatments happened in Silver, Long, and Lake Jane. Let's look at the most current ones first. Silver Lake, hybrid water no-fall declined from 71 acres in June 2023. We did find 3 acres in June 2024, but I want to hasten to say the fluoride treatment continued through all of June, and when we were out there, the treatment was a work in progress. It wasn't done. So that, we expected those to leave. Now, in October, Paul Carey, who's here tonight, the applicator applied the fluoridone, and Amber White, the president of Silver Lake Improvement Association, went out in the lake October 24, and they looked and searched, trying to find hybrid water milfoil. They did not see any. So we'll be real excited next year to go out and do that pond survey to see what we find. Long Lake, in June 2024, it had declined from 29 acres in 2023 to 20 acres in 2024. But it was still working on it, and the Friends of Long Lake hired PLM, the applicator, to go out and do a survey in September. He found 2 acres of it that had survived, and those 2 acres were treated with a combination of dicot and Procelicor in September. So we'll see next June if that took care of it. Lake Jane, Eurasian water milfoil had declined from 51 acres in 2023 to 11 acres in 2024. After the treatment had been completed, the applicator PLM went out and searched for it. He didn't see any. So if he couldn't find any, obviously, if there was any left, it was low numbers. Over in Demontreville, Olson, Lake Demontreville, we have not found any hybrid water milfoil since they finished their treatment. So we've had 2 different plant surveys. We couldn't find it. And our contractor really looked too. So that's really good news. Lake Olson, we did have a little bit few surviving plants last year, 0.44 acres, and that went up to 2 acres. And this June, Lake Demontreville Olson Association treated 1 acre with Procelicor in June and 2 acres with Procelicor in September. So next June, when we come out there with the plant survey, we'll be real excited to see what that plant survey shows for these 5 lakes that have worked so hard to solve the problems. Next. Lake Elmo Association, I have some financial challenges, but they're working away and they're doing really well at what they're doing. For them, their treatment this year was a week after a plant survey. So the June plant survey showed the Eurasian water milfoil increased, and both. They have both Eurasian and hybrid in the lake. Go figure. Anyway, the milfoil increased from 17 acres in 2023 to 23 acres in 2024. And about a week after we did the survey, they treated 10 acres on the north end of the lake with Procelicor, which is a really good herbicide. They've been doing well with that. The map to the far right shows the treatment area. The map next to us shows all of the places that we found hybrid or Eurasian water milfoil during the survey. Next. At the direction of the Valley Branch Watershed District, we surveyed the ponds between Long Lake and Demontreville. As I just mentioned, Demontreville, we have not seen any milfoil for a couple of years. We wanted to know, is there milfoil in the ponds? If so, the fragments could go downstream and reinfest the lake. We'd like to know that so appropriate management could occur. The Long Lake Middle, that's the one closest to Long, the little skinny one up at the upper left. That's Long Lake Middle. Eurasian water milfoil was observed throughout that pond. Long Lake South is the big one in the middle, and Eurasian water milfoil was observed throughout that pond. Pond 1, the downstream one, we found it in the inlet to the pond. We didn't see it within the pond itself. Take a look at curly leaf pondweed. The fluoridone that was used to remove the milfoil also kills the curly leaf pondweed plants. And we remember that curly leaf reproduces but makes these little things. They're called turions, but they look like seeds. Drops it to the bottom of the sediment, and then they grow new plants. The fluoridone will kill plants. It won't kill those turions, anything down there that could be populated. So you just keep that in mind. Now, curly pondweed has not been seen in Silver Lake in either June 2023 or June 2024. I know for many years that was there and they're treating it. And so that's really good to see. We haven't seen it over there for a couple of years. Long Lake, curly was coming up there, getting more and more of it. And It declined from 22 acres in June 2023 to 0.6 acres in June 2024. And again, the Florida was still working, so we don't know if it took care of those plants or not by the end of June. In Lake Jane, it declined from 25 acres in 2023 to not observed in June 2024. That was really good. In Lake Demontville, now Demontville, we didn't treat it or anything this year, but we saw this big decrease from 22 acres in June 2023 to 2 acres in June 2024. Now, in 2024, all of the plants were from the turions and sediment. We wonder, does that mean that there are fewer turions because of Florida taking out plants last year so they couldn't make turions? But we'll find out. More information to come next year with the survey. Lake Olson, we didn't see any crude leaf last year because the Florida killed the plants. We found 3 acres this year. That would be from the turions, but that's really not very much either. That's looking good. Long Lake has a DNR approved lake vegetation management plan. They got the plan because they had so much curly leaf and they thought they're probably going to need to manage it more than 1 year. So people say you should get a plan. You do. And the plan requires them to do a turion survey. Now, the upper picture to the right, that's what a turion looks like. It acts like a seed, grows about those plants. To do the survey, points are selected in the lake. In this case, they chose 50 locations. The map left a little bit hard to see. Any place there is an X or a little dot, those are the 50 places they chose to collect samples. The sampling is shown to the bottom right picture. It has this tool called the Ponar dredge. It drops it to the bottom of the lake. When it gets to the bottom, if you just send this messenger down the rope and it triggers, so it closes, takes up a chunk of sediment, put it on a sieve, and you put lots of water to get rid of all the dirt. And what's left is the turion, like you see in the top. You count how many turions are there. They do collect 2 samples for every location, one on each side of the boat. So 100 samples. They found 17 of the 50 locations, or about a third of them, had turions. Others did not. They collected a total of 33 turions in the 100 samples. John, can you point out that red dot in the bottom there? Yeah, 11 turions at that spot. All the other spots had either 0, up between 0 and 2 turions. So I don't know why we had a bunch of turions at that spot. But we used our computations. The average density of turions in Long Lake is 14 turions per square meter. And typically about half of them are going to germinate and do plants in a year. So we're probably going to see some more curly pondweed out in the lake and need some more herbicide to keep whacking away. If you kill the plant before it makes turions, then it used up turions in the sediment, eventually use them all up. That's kind of how that works. Next, Lake Elmo doesn't have a whole lot of curly leaf. We've observed at 4 locations. They're shown by those brighter spots on the slide there, so not much there. Other invasive plants, weed canary grass. It was not observed in Lake Elmo, 1 location, Lake Jane and Silver, 2 in Long and Demontville, and 3 in Olson. Not very concerned about it. If we have any documented increases, probably we should manage it. Narrowleaf cattail, 1 location at Demontville, Olson, Jane, and Silver, 3 at Long Lake, and it's along the western and southern shores of Lake Elmo, where it's been for many years. Yellow iris was found at 1 location in Demontville and Elmo and 2 locations in Silver Lake. We do recommend that lake associations work with owners and get rid of that because that can be so troublesome to shorelines if it keeps going. So keep whacking at it. Common reed has been growing along the southern end and southeastern shores of Lake Elmo for a few years now. Purple loosestrife, we found it at 1 location in Jane, not observed in Silver, any of the other lakes, just Jane at 1 location. Now we sampled a couple of lakes we don't usually do. Downs Lake was assessed as a part of a water quality improvement study. It had good diversity, that Simpson's index we were talking about. It didn't meet the Minnesota DNR IBI, like it needs to have a minimum of 11 species. It only had 10. It was close. It used to have a quality number of 17.8. It was 15.5, just a little low. So it's just telling us the water quality could improve, which is why you're doing a water quality study, improvement study. There's one AIS, recommitted grants, it's served at 3 locations. McDonald also was assessed as a part of a water quality improvement study, had great plant diversity, and it also met Minnesota DNR's IBI, for not being stressed communication. We have some recommendations for the Valley Branch Watershed District. We recommend that the Valley Branch Watershed District post the report to the district website and direct BAR to inform interested residents, DNR staff, Ramsey County staff, U of M staff that it's been posted and publicly available. We recommend the Valley Branch Watershed District authorize BAR to provide technical support for management of aquatic invasive species when requested by Valley Branch Watershed District organizations, such as answering questions, providing requested information, assisting with meetings between the Lake Association representatives, DNR staff, to discuss 2025 treatment of Eurasian water milfoil, curly pondweed, and/or zebra mussel. Assist the lake organizations with permitting, treatment designs for 2025 treatments. Assist with DNR required monitoring, such as the CLP terrestrial survey required for the Long Lake Vegetation Management Plan, and assist with Minnesota DNR required post-treatment reporting. And beyond the Long Lake Lake Vegetation Management Plan requires an annual report be submitted to the DNR, so we assist with that. We also recommend the Valley Branch Watershed District authorize BAR to work with DNR staff, U of M staff, the Lake Elmo Association to identify and implement feasible options for managing the common weed. Assist with any meetings with Minnesota DNR permitting, treatment designs, any required post-treatment reporting. Up until now, the Lake Elmo Association has been super focused on the Eurasian water milfoil and financially challenged to take on any new responsibilities. But we keep putting it out there and saying that, common weed is an invasive species, extensive spreading, and we, if the various parties decide to come together and do something, we would appreciate having that directive that we can provide that technical assistance to help the Lake Association move it forward. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
I realized, common reed and Elmo, that there's some purpose of a lot of shoreline there. Why aren't they partnering with people on that one?
It's state, county, is that state or county?
County, yeah.
It's a good question. I guess we should be, John and I should be checking into that, huh, John?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Parks Division handles that, and
We'll talk about Dan Mixley and the park manager.
thank you, sir. Sir, you have a question?
Did the other lakes that you were mentioning with the hybrid milfoils, were they genetically testing those as well? Or were they just doing plant observation with that?
Genetic testing, Demonstreville and Olson were genetically tested and verified it. Yeah. And then Lake Elmo was also genetically tested, and they found some Eurasian water milfoil and some hybrid water milfoil. They verified both species are present in the lake. So I have to remember to talk about Eurasian water milfoil / hybrid water milfoil when I talk about that, about what we're seeing and what we're removing. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Were they just one quick follow-up question? Were they finding that the hybrids in the other lakes were more resistant as well, or in their surveys?
I think what we just found that it grew really well in the lake and
I think that another thing that we could go back and look at the data, but if you look at lakes like the Montreville, Olson, probably Long, possibly Silver as well. The lakes that have been treating for a longer amount of time, the treatments basically will take out the Eurasian milfoil first, and the hybrid will remain. It's the same thing, like when you talk about the yellow iris. I have planted purple irises in my shoreline probably 5, 6 years in a row. But every time we treat, if the treatment's near me, the yellow, the invasive survives and the purple dies. So,
Yeah,
So you're playing with fire when you.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's, I mean, it's, if you don't treat, then it's only invasives. If you do treat, there is repercussions.
And also, I have a quick question regarding the treatment for the zebra mussels. The copper. Does that affect any invasive aquatic species or plants? Not at all, but
none of the ones that you have in the lake, fortunately, you do not have starry stonewort in your lake. That's one that it's over in Medicine Lake, which is the lake I work with. And copper is used as, that's the treatment that's most effective for starry stonewort. But for the species that we have in the Valley Branch lakes, that won't have any effect at all on them. It would be nice if it would take them out.
oh, yeah.
But no, yeah, it'll just take out the zebra mussels, and the Earth Tech QZ is kind of mirrors the way Floridon works in that it's really low dose, and for whatever reason, the invasive species are way more sensitive to those substances than the native species. So as long as you can keep the dose low enough so it doesn't harm the natives and keep it there long enough, and it's really tricky to figure out how long you keep it there. You've got to kill every last zebra mussel. You have varying strengths in those zebra mussels. Some are kind of weak and they're going to get killed soon. You got to kill that toughest one out there, because if he's left, then he produces. And so they have various ways of trying to figure out how long to keep it in. You don't want to pull back too soon. If you're 1 week away from getting that last one, you don't want to be quitting.
Yeah, so it's not just one massive treatment.
No, yeah, you're right. It's kind of like with Floridon, you do your initial, but then you have to keep, you're monitoring the concentration, you're adding. So you don't want that concentration to get high, because then you're going to hurt the natives. So you got to keep monitoring, how much do you have in, and what is our target to keep it low, but have enough in there so we're continuing to kill the invasive species. And I thought, of all the projects, to look at what happened in a Silver Lake, and thank you all for the work that you did to get the chemical in there, to go from, 71 acres, and you couldn't find it this fall, a hybrid milfoil that's hard to kill. And the only unfavorable result in the natives, yes, we did see a significant reduction in the muskrats, but there was plenty of it. It was still the most abundant, most frequently occurring species. And so to preserve that native plant community, it had such an impact on the hybrid milfoil. I just thought that outstanding. Yeah. Maybe in a couple of years, we could, if things go as we hope for these lakes, maybe we should get a paper out there to the community to show how you manage invasive species and protect your natives.
A hint to our engineer, perhaps with our help, of course, that we can, if we are not doing anything, to not just provide that on our website, but provide these folks with further information. I don't know, it has to be leaflet drop or something, I don't know. We have to do something, make them more and more aware. And that's part of what we've been doing more and more, and emphasis on education. It's just something that has to be done.
Yeah, it's good for the people to know. It's
Yes,
really great things that are happening thanks to Valley Branch Watershed District. It's a pleasure to work for you. I flew all the way up from California just to be here. Yeah, landed last night, 7:30 in the morning. I'm back to 65 and sunny for the rest of the winter. Yes, it's me, but I didn't have to see you in person. I told John, I want to be there.
Sir.
If I can, I just would like to make one comment about something that affects the lakes that we've seen, that I didn't catch as part of the presentation, and that is that on Lake de Monteville and Olson, we've seen, over the last 10 years, we've seen an increase in macroalgae of 550%. It has taken that plant, which is a good native plant, to a nuisance level. And it's at the nuisance level where it's almost worse than when we had milfoil. Okay, at least in some of the parts of the lake, it is worse than when we had milfoil. We can hypothesize on what's creating it, and you know, some people may object, but I think that we're seeing a lot of the bottom sediment being stirred up into the water column, which is feeding this. So we're kind of, it's not an invasive, so we can't treat it. The only thing we can do is try to stop what's happening to prevent its growth, so that it grows at a normal level and isn't a nuisance. So this problem leaves us with our hands tied until the DNR puts some regulations in for wake and thrust management. In the meantime, it's a problem for us because it is reducing the amount of recreation that people can have freely on the lakes.
And you can't just come in and dicot big patches of it.
You really can't, you know, it's an algae. What you'd have to do is dump massive amounts of copper into a lake, which is not good for the fish or anything else. So really the fix is stop what's causing the problem. Don't try to treat the issue.
So lastly, a eutrophication issue, phosphorus, lawns, blah, blah, blah. Anything?
You know, you
speculate on?
can look at shoreline buffers and shoreline management. I think that those are all extremely important, but I think that really the biggest problem is we have overpowered boats on small shallow lakes. And we're seeing the negative impact of that. Until we get to the point as a state or a county or watershed of regulating some of that use, the homeowners and the lake associations are gonna have to fight this battle. And we're not gonna win.
So no 200 horsepower outboards on De Monteville.
I only had my boat on there once and I didn't drive it fast.
Just thought of-
I just wanted to bring it up. It's an issue that's not.
We understand. We
But
heard-
it's an issue
Yeah.
that is environmental and is affecting the lakes.
Over the years, I have personally heard pros and cons about that, and that's a tough issue. And
It is.
I'm not exactly sure how it's dealt with outside of, you know, getting tough, meaning regulation.
Right, which nobody wants.
Did you hear anything about wake boats at the round table? I heard a little bit.
It was brought up in every session I was in, not by the presenters, but by the audience. I think there's a lot of review all over, and we're gonna start to see some smaller counties and cities implementing some. And then, of course, when that happens, you'll see more. And at some point, it's gonna have to be pushed to statewide levels.
Are there any regulations on jet skis or anything on the lakes? Because I know there was a lot of regulation on the river because of issues of jet skis years ago by the Park Service. Are jet skis an issue on the lakes at all?
And that's
I don't think there is, there's no restriction that I'm aware of.
just inland shore.
Okay,
There.
And they used to be really loud,
right,
so that was part of it.
right.
And, you know, of course, they have a jet stream too, that, you know, if they operate too shallow, so they, you know, they pushed them out a little bit and then those machines got quieter and kind of went away as being the problem child. Then we have a new one.
Okay. Mr. Levy, thank you very much for attending. Sir Paul,
Yes.
thank you for your efforts. And Miss Meg Ratty, once again, you bring some sunshine to us. Thank you for this and thank you for all your work.
Did you notice the weather warmed up? You know,
Yeah.
you know, I hope it doesn't get too cold when I go back.
Green with envy. Stay away from the fires.
I will do that. I will do that. Been a pleasure.
Thank you once again. Now, I believe we have, can we ask, for these things to be done? We don't need a motion, do we? I think so. Then to avoid having to repeat what, Ms. Ratty said, I would like to direct you to follow through with these, sir. And please keep us posted.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you, Lane. And thank you folks for attending. Feel free to enjoy the rest of our meeting. Hopefully we won't bore you. Okay. That's squared away. Let's move on to our next item. Petition for, excuse me. The Technical Advisor Committee comments on the draft issue. Greg?
Up to the front row here.
Yes, sir. Okay, lead us in this.
Thank you, Mr. President, of course. On December 13th, we had hosted a plan TAC meeting here
Thank you, folks.
to discuss the input on the draft issue statements and goals for the plan. The plan TAC is a group comprised of, well, folks are invited, it's comprised of what's called the plan review authorities, which includes the state and regional agencies like MPCA, DNR, Met Council, Washington County, Washington Conservation District, Branson County, also the cities and townships that are located in Valley Ranch Watershed District. We had pretty good attendance. I mean, it was a very cold day, but I think we had 14 or 15 people show up. So I walked them through a brief presentation about where we're at in the plan update process and how you, as managers, reviewed, prioritized resources and the issues. And then we divided up in small groups of about 5 or 6 people in each one. Each group was led by a facilitator. John was an excellent facilitator. Aaron Anderson-Wentz from our office was a third facilitator, and I also facilitated. And we asked them questions, and those are the questions that are included on the first page of the memo regarding, what concerns do you have about this? Is it the right priority? That sort of thing. The conversation quickly became pretty organic, and we didn't get to all of we didn't really answer those questions for every particular topic.
Right.
Each group started in a different section of issues to make sure that we got to everything. So not every group got through all of the issues. I'd say that the memo that was included in the packet, the red text towards the back of it is kind of a summary of the comments as related to the issue statements and goals that they pertain to. I would say that overall, the comments that we got were not unsurprising. A lot of them started to look towards implementation and ways that Valley Branch could either cooperate with cities, townships, counties, et cetera, on tackling these issues. But there were, I think, 5 or 6, I'll call significant is even giving it too much emphasis, but more substantial comments that I think require maybe some input from you as managers to see if substantial or meaningful changes to those issue statements and goals are necessary. I do apologize. There were also minor changes, which were intended to be shown as track changes. It looks like those track changes actually got accepted in the memo. Those are things like, there was a question about auditing sites to look at chloride use, and City of Woodbury said audit the scary word, like do visit site, instead.
Yeah.
That was shown as a track change. I will provide the track changes as a follow-up to this, but those were what I consider to be pretty minor stuff. But there were 5 or 6 issues that I thought would be worth a discussion. The first is some of the folks in attendance noted that education and outreach was not identified as an issue. In the previous plan, it had its own sort of issue category. And so the question was raised, is the intent of the plan will address it primarily as a tool to address other issues, or should it be and this wasn't necessarily a suggestion, but question of, is it just a tool or should it be its own issue category and have explicit goals related to education? As the plan is phrased right now, the intent is that it is a tool that would be used by Valley Branch and its partners like MREP to address the other more resource-based issues that you have. But it could also be identified as its own issue and emphasized that way through issue statements and goals. So I wanted to get your input on that.
Could be both too.
Yes,
I should say, regardless of whether it becomes its own issue category, I think it will remain as a tool to address kind of all the issues.
for everything, right?
Yeah.
It should include it for everything. Education's important. Okay,
So
so,
it
Yes,
seems
sir.
like one of the tools that we have that is pretty cost effective. I think it reaches a lot of people and has a lot of value in that way. In that, earlier, some of the discussion, we're talking about, the wakes in the lake, stirring up the sediment and stuff. And it's like, well, one of the things that you can do besides regulating and controlling it is to educate people about it. And while it may not be 100%, it's, I think, a very effective tool and very cost effective.
yes, sir.
If we were to have it as its own category, I mean, how would we utilize that category as opposed to incorporating that into everything else?
Sure. That's a great question. For example, an issue related to education, just a general issue statement. You could say that one of the issues is that many landowners within the watershed don't necessarily understand the environmental impacts of their land management practices. That could be an issue. Taken into a very extreme case, it's like maybe people on Long Lake don't understand the impact that their high powered boats are having on the lake sediments. I mean, that's a very specific case. But you could, I think, and that's something that was from the last plan. I think one of the issues cited was that people don't necessarily have good visibility of the Valley Branch Watershed District and aren't aware of all the resources that you can provide to help them with that sort of thing. Those are some more general education issues or outreach issues that would be applicable to a broad range of resource issues, but would be phrased as an education. So goals related to that, for example, might be to increase the visibility of the Valley Branch Watershed District within the community. That's a goal that is not necessarily related to any particular issue, but is broad with respect to your organization.
So in the writing, we have that element for every topic that we cover, and also a reference to CE, our education section as well.
Yeah.
Thought,
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Yep.
what are you thinking, Rick? Like the way you
I'm-
contemplate.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about, I like the notion of it being a tool. But I think it's pretty easy for when it's, education is just another one of the many tools we may use, that it kind of gets lost. I don't particularly see it as an issue as such, but I'm not sure how we balance that.
What I'm thinking on that is its redundancy is going to help us. And so even if we have to explain it twice or 3 times or 4 times, that they're going to benefit or get the idea.
I could suggest also a third possibility that's maybe a hybrid in that maybe it is not its own issue category in the prioritized sense like stormwater, groundwater management, wetlands. But the issues that are identified, the general issues related to education, things like visibility, maybe it's financial capacity of folks who would participate in the stewardship program or something like that. Those items could be described in the narrative as, when discussing the tool, of like, this is a tool that we like to use to address these issues. One of the things that is holding back the effectiveness of this tool in particular, could be these particular items. So you may not have measurable goals related to education, but the plan would acknowledge those things that might need to be overcome in order to most effectively use that tool.
That's very appealing. I think that, yeah, I'm done with everything.
Rich,
Do you have
how do
something
we
else?
kind of connected to that? How do we then measure, you know, the type of, you know, educating that we're doing and whether it's effective or not?
Feedback?
That's one way to do it, is to explicitly look for feedback. I don't know exactly what metrics, for example, that MREF might use in their communications. But that's one thing that if you'd like to, we can include specific goals in the plan to
Urge.
like encourage or promote, measuring that impact, whether it, like, for example, if you want to, you could have a goal to, or just throwing this out there as an example, to increase the visibility of the Valley Branch Watershed District. And then, yeah, you do maybe a survey that just, there are a lot of firms that do this now, especially with digital technology and text messages and things like that. And Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District is one of the leaders on the edge of this right now, where they send a text out to like 25,000 people or something like, hey, have you heard of the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District?
I was thinking TV commercial. I'm sorry.
I mean, there are ways to do that. I mean, if it gets to the value piece of like, is that something that is valuable to the work that you're doing, the tools that you're using? If you find out like, oh, only 5% of people know who Valley Branch is, it's important to change that. And what are the ways that you're going to change that? So, I mean, in that sense, maybe it would make sense to include some explicit goals regarding outreach and connection with the community.
Excellent. We'll consider that. I still like that.
Yeah.
Somehow free cable awareness. We come on in lab coats or something.
But I think we would want to consult with Angie too, to see what she can.
Of course, yeah.
Maybe there's some things she could do with us, but then purview to
Yeah,
get more visibility for us.
great idea.
I think in that case, the next step I will do, I will develop some draft education goals for your consideration. It makes sense to include them in the plan as separate goals that we can. And if you're like, it's maybe too specific, we can scale back.
Yeah, maybe if they're specific to, one of the other
Yes,
areas that way.
Yeah.
That way it's kind of tailored to, one portion of the plan.
One of the other issues was a couple of people raised their eyebrow at groundwater being a medium priority issue versus a high priority issue.
I have something on this to, oh, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
I saw that in a number of places, and my concern, and maybe this won't be happening, is that if you make everything a high priority issue, nothing's a high priority. So,
Very true.
My take on that is, okay. So let's say we make it a high priority issue. What do we do? At this point, what can be done? I don't see much. Maybe I'm very wrong.
No, I think that what your sentiment there is very reflective of the discussion that you guys had nearly a year ago when we were talking about these issues, is that the ranking of groundwater as a medium priority issue is a balance of the fact that it is very important and there is not that much that you can do relative to the other authorities with direct groundwater responsibilities. And so medium was sort of a compromise of those two factors. I would recommend that it remain as a medium priority. I just felt that it was worth bringing to you guys.
Good.
If anybody disagrees, though, I'm curious.
I mean, one simple thing, restore, when we help support restoration of habitats to native plants, we, in a lot of cases, we improve infiltration.
Exactly. We start on top and it works its way down. That's one of the goals, I think.
That's a multi-benefit element, and that's also related to the third bullet, which, similar to groundwater, some people thought, well, stormwater management, that's identified as a medium priority. Should that be a high priority too? And again, I think there's a little bit of a relationship to the mechanisms and multi-benefit piece of stormwater management, specifically your regulatory program, being a little bit more of a tool to achieve the other high priority, to address the other high priority issues that are categorized as high priority, including water quality and flood risk reduction. Whereas the stormwater management itself, priority isn't to manage stormwater for stormwater's sake, it's to achieve the other benefits that you're trying to do. And so that's why I think it ended up as a medium priority versus a high priority, but yeah, looking for your feedback.
You got that. Right?
Okay.
You know what we want to know. I don't know if you gentlemen have any comments on, written in red. I have some very minor things. Not a big deal, but, one of the, just very quickly, one of the things that, thematic element to my writings are, with what they wrote is, that we're taking care of these things on a case-by-case basis. And that, it's concern for, because I don't have a better word at this time, the equality of how we administer or minister to what we do applies to everybody. I made a blanket statement a while ago about everybody has an equal opportunity to drown. And we are here to help prevent that. And so that applies to our entire watershed district. And I hope that that's clear to people or becomes clear. But we're not engaged in discriminatory practices or even favoring some communities over others.
I do know one thing that was raised as a case-by-case basis was the consideration of a water body's impairment relative to its priority. And that was specifically with respect to, during the last plan, if a water body was listed as impaired, it automatically became a high priority water body. Whereas this time around, you guys looked at the impairments and kind of weighted of like, well, is this an impairment that we can really impact? And is it worthwhile for this lake that maybe doesn't have any public access? And it wasn't oh, it's a silver bullet, or it's a golden ticket, you're already at the top of the list. And
Case by
people
case.
were generally appreciative of that approach.
Sir.
One question, there was a comment here that said Bowser staff noted the lack of Valley Branch storage projects. I mean, our whole watershed pretty much is a storage project.
Yeah, I'm just the messenger. Okay. I think what may have been, I know in the past couple of years, there have been additional grant funding, or has been additional grant funding that has been opened up for storage, for projects that add storage upstream of, and you know, I was under the impression it was only the Minnesota River and the Mississippi River. I don't know if it also includes the St. Croix River, and it may have been referenced to not utilizing those funds, but anyway.
Whatever, I did question that comment. So.
Good point. Yes. Do the managers have any other comment? And I would also invite any commentary from our inspector. Do you have anything?
No, I don't. I think when we look at where we are in the food chain and how we can affect these things, we're in the middle, you know, versus the state or the county on some of these things. And certainly what we do impacts a lot of things, but there's certain things that are out of our pay range or whatever, however you wanna.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I see that. Yes, sir.
So the one that resonated well with me was the one that followed, 10B on and find ways we can do more with water reuse.
Oh, yeah.
So that, I mean, that relates to groundwater conservation as well, given how much stress rock, our groundwater puts on groundwater resources. It's something that I'm starting to get involved in with my work up at North Hills. So I know there's technical issues to work out with the Department of Health and all that, but we're not the only ones that are starting to work on this stuff. I always get Hugo and Lionel Lakes, but one of those two, it's fun, but done really well.
Doesn't, South Washington do a lot with that? With the water reuse, storage and.
If they have, it's been fairly recent. I don't recall a lot of it.
They have some reuse projects with the city of Woodbury. I think now, Valley Branch through development, permitted projects probably have more.
We do?
We've implemented quite a few water reuse systems or permits over the last several years. We've had several of we have more going up, not only just apartment complexes with underground storage and reuse, but also now you look at Shilton South and Lake Elmo where they're using ponding systems that they're going to draw water out. There's 3 apartment buildings in Woodbury that are pulling out of ponding systems for irrigation. So that's something that's within the last 5 years, John, or 4 years, we've seen this big uptick of that come into play. So,
And that was a question of, and again, this is part of the semantics, but there was a suggestion that maybe a goal should be added related to implementing Valley Branch led or water reuse or water conservation projects. I mean, you've permitted a bunch of projects. But now there's a couple different ways to do this. That could be a standalone goal, or that could be an action that is emphasized as a means of achieving the goals that are already there, such as, limiting the negative impact on groundwater.
Right, or quickly, like, it just occurred to me, some of the buildings facing south to reduce chloride use, something like that. We have these suggestions or something. Anything there? That's what I was thinking, it just popped.
No, I think that's also a good example of things that that's a good idea. It's very
Implement it.
specific, so that maybe it's beyond like a plan goal language, but it's definitely like an action, it's a point in action.
Yes,
And so I guess my recommendation here is looking through the goals as written. I guess it doesn't actually seem like there's a goal that's particularly well suited to district-led reuse or conservation projects. There's one about development review, and there's one that focuses on landowner practices, but maybe it does make sense to add a goal for Valley Branch led projects. And we did jump over item number 4. I do want to make sure we hit that one. Bowser asked if, especially with respect to climate resilience, whether there were environmental justice or social vulnerability considerations. Thinking about what areas or populations within your district might be most susceptible to those impacts, and whether or not that would guide district action.
I thought that I might have addressed that earlier.
Okay, gotcha.
That this form of equality, and we had this come up years ago regarding treatment or helping with failing septic systems in Athens. And I conversed with some people about this matter, and they thought that it should be district-wide. And so, again, it's very simple to say that applied to the entire district. We're not focusing on one area. We want this.
The closer to the issue with coast, bacterial component.
Yeah, that occurred and I had, some folks bring up, without getting specific,
Yeah,
to say that, hey, that's not, that you folks should consider
yeah,
applying this to other areas where this is an occurrence. Okay,
yeah, like trying to keep my apna bias at bay here, I would say that if we start a program that helps, maybe we somehow allocate funds or resources to help motivate people with old septic systems to upgrade them. We would want to spend that money where it's needed the most.
of course,
Yeah,
but we also have to keep in mind that, so that it doesn't seem like, again, for not a better word, favoritism, that we send out our feelers and look for other areas that might need help, or, even if they're not a top priority, at least consider them and possibly make them a priority, either high or medium or whatever, future. It gives us something to do.
President Marshall,
Yes, sir.
just to add on number 4, I think Alyssa Thompson with the Conservation District, we've had those discussions too about the plant grants, right? That, how do we apply it across, all the different communities,
Right,
and there's been some attempts on their part to try to penetrate some different communities. So there has been an attempt, as they're basically leading that mission for us, to do rain gardens or native plantings in other communities. So
right,
it's not always successful, but there is an attempt there, I think.
right.
But there's an openness for us to, put out grant money in those communities.
And we pursue that. We actively pursue that.
Hmm.
They certainly bring it to our attention, but always look for these sort of things. Okay.
And there was another suggestion of adding a goal related to identifying and mapping potential regional BMP opportunities. This one in particular, I would argue, is an action that is supportive of the other goals that already are in the plan. I think this is too specific to be its own goal, but if you
Right.
feel strongly enough about it, then it's your plan.
No, we know, but you're gonna help us. So it's an action that should be included, I think. So we have that. We've got these components now that we talked about this evening. The education, actions to add.
Yeah.
And not necessarily have a particular category, the education one, but incorporate it into everything we're doing.
And that's how the implementation section will be organized. It'll
Okay.
address the different tools that you'll be using for, and different tools will be applicable primarily to different issues too. Things like education will be applicable to pretty much everything. But, and speaking of tools, those were things that the TAC overwhelmingly was supportive of and appreciated the efforts of Valley Branch, particularly in water quality monitoring and the work that's been done on hydraulic modeling and identification of inundation areas and flood risk. And those are some of the tools that are available as you implement is education, there's monitoring, there's the aquatic vegetation management actions that Meg talked about tonight, all of those different facets of your implementation program.
Does anybody have anything else? I have just one more item that it was issue 8. The TAC noted that we need to pay attention to PFAS contamination and suggested that we engage in these conversations. Well, I believe we're doing that now and we're involved. And so I guess they just didn't see that because they were being asked. But this should also be incorporated if that's what we're doing as part of the medium priority groundwater contamination issue. And also making suggestions and working with other agencies as well as our citizenry to help alleviate this problem.
And I think that comment was shared in a little bit of frustration of that seems to be the only issue that their community is able to deal with right now. And so I think the acknowledgement was that if you'd like to be part of that conversation, be prepared for an earful sort of thing. But
as they
But yes,
say,
I think-
bring it.
That's
Yeah.
that's a role that you guys have expressed interest in participating in.
Well, do we have anybody else online?
No, electronically, no, there's no one else with it.
But you are being recorded.
I go ahead and let John edit out my profanity, but, you know, the profanity is that I realize I might chicken shit when I say this, but the PFAS thing is such a monster. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
largely on a couple of other agencies. I say we do whatever we can, but boy, it could like suck the life out of anybody if you're not careful, right? I'm not
No,
I'm
we
not being
don't.
apathetic towards those that are struggling with this or whatever, just think that, you know,
Our limitations are clear.
yeah, it's similar to groundwater.
Yeah.
What is our role? What can we
Yeah,
do?
if you
right?
allocated your entire annual budget to
Yeah.
PFAS remediation,
You drop in the
you
bucket.
yeah, you might not. you
We're
would
done.
touch it.
Unfortunately, there's other, our health department, MPCA, are at the forefront. We expect them to do that, but everybody else can have a piece of that pie.
Mhm.
MDNR, et cetera, the county, everybody. And it should be treated that way.
I think we can, educate ourselves.
Without
So
a doubt.
that we're going in the right direction and supporting the efforts and, and be aware of it so that as things change,
Yeah.
maybe we have more of it.
And also with our annual meeting with the Minnesota Watersheds, that we somehow communicate or obtain information like that one lecture I sat through about the bubblers. Hey, folks, what do you got? Bring us something that might help us, at the very least, provide education. And secondly, some ideas for dealing with this thing. That's a win-win because we don't have a choice. Okay. Do you have anything else, sir?
No, other than I just do want to emphasize that I apologize, the track changes were not visible in the document, and I will send out another version of scan those. I don't
problem,
anticipate
sir.
that there'll be to significant discussions, but just you can see the changes.
No, we appreciate that. No problems. Mr. Bill?
I'm outraged by those track changes.
He was an ex-attorney.
Could have been any drier.
The next version will have every line numbered.
Okay. We're squared away. Greg, as always, thank you, sir. I appreciate your help. Stay with it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to the petition for reevaluation of the MS4 status. Now, John, I'm really ignorant here. You gotta help me. Okay, so tell us, why are we doing this? Maybe you gentlemen are.
Well, MS4 stands for
I don't know.
Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System.
Thank you, Greg. Good night.
For us, is their operator. Back 15 some years ago, when the program first started, anybody who owned a pipe that was 24 inches or greater in diameter was considered an MS4 if you were part of this urban area. So Valley Branch has been
What was that cutoff, John, you mentioned? I missed it.
24 inches in diameter was the pipe size. If you owned a pipe that was that large or larger, and if you were in this urbanized area, you were considered an MS4. So Valley Branch has been MS4 ever since the program got rolled out by the PCA. And we track various things and submit an annual report. You might recall these annual hearings that you have. And they have also required that you incorporate certain things into your rules. If you're a more traditional MS4, like a city, then you're required to do a lot of education on your staff, that sort of thing. Valley Branch has always been a non-traditional MS4, so a lot of things didn't really seem to apply. So this year, a few months ago, the PCA was reevaluating the people that are in MS4s in the urbanized area. And that led me to organize a meeting with the PCA to review Valley Branch's whether it should really be an MS4 or not, based on some of the things that they're asking. So at a meeting with 3 staff from the PCA and reviewed where Valley Branch's pipes were, what their purposes were, how our permitting program works, how we coordinate with cities within the watershed district to do maintenance and that sort of thing. And in the end, they suggested that Valley Branch submit a petition for reevaluation, leading me to think that if we did, Valley Branch would be removed from the MS4 list. What that means really is that you would not be required to do the annual reporting. You would not be required to do some of the things that mapping that they require, rules update that they require, because you're not really an MS4.
Cost saving.
So it would be a cost savings. South Washington Watershed District also went through this process. They were at MS4 and they had a discussion at a recent board meeting and authorized staff to submit the petition to have a reevaluation to hopefully no longer be at MS4.
Okay.
Are there any advantages to being a
Yeah.
MS4?
It's a,
What's the word, pros and cons?
I can't think of any reason why you want to be at MS4. Currently, I can't think of any grants that are meeting all the votes.
But doesn't get us any bonus points in.
I can't think of any.
Mr. President, can I make a motion?
With your permission, Rick or John, please. go
I
ahead.
just have a question.
Yes, sir.
And
Of course.
I'm just curious, a township like West Lakeland, how would they be different than us as far as should they be an MS4 or not? If they've got culverts under roads and stuff.
Yeah, so West Lakeland, a portion of West Lakeland Township is currently at MS4. I think through this review of the urbanized area, I think they would no longer be at MS4 because I don't think they're in the new definition of an urbanized area.
Okay,
But from what I understand, if you're responsible for stormwater management, so a lot of the ponds that Valley Branch requires with a permit, they get put in a drainage easement or some other mechanism, and it's either the community in which the project lies or the landowner that's really responsible for that maintenance. If it were different like in the city of Lake Elmo, a lot of those stormwater ponds get put in outlots, and then the city of Lake Elmo owns outlots, and they're responsible for maintenance of that stormwater. So if that were West Lakeland, then I think the PCA would be less likely to remove them from the sport.
I'll see. Thank you. I was just curious.
Sir.
I would like to put forth a motion that we direct staff to submit a petition to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to remove Valley Branch Watershed District as an MS4.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. John, make that so, please. Well, thank you. Can't beat that. Okay. Next item. Counselor, you're up.
Nothing for me today. Right.
What? You know, just so you're aware, just from your countenance, I'm going to report that you're doing well.
Thank you.
I'll let your superiors know if you have superiors.
Stay awake.
I know, yeah, that's. She looked interested.
She's all right. And she didn't get all pissed off about no track changes.
I was also fuming.
No,
You could feel it on this. You
Couldn't you read this stuff? You read this stuff? Yeah, good.
There was a time we may have done that.
Oh, boy. Right on. Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Inspector.
Yes, President Marchand, managers, I just have two project updates.
Okay.
Obviously, with the weather, what's going on, there's not a lot of inspecting going on, but there are two projects. One, if you remember the Karen Drive Apartments in Woodbury, right in the old Black Diamond site, kind of the floodplain and the wetlands. We approved that permit here this fall. I attended a pre-construction meeting back in the 14th. The city did issue their land disturbance permit. We have everything pretty much falling together on that from a surety and maintenance agreements. They were planning to start an erosion control installation today. I'm not quite sure they did that, but
These
it's gonna be Monday now. They originally were scheduled for today. I was out there yesterday and happened to meet the project superintendent on site.
Right.
So it's really hard to install silk fence, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
They actually have to cut it in or trench it in. So depending on how that goes, they'll be fine by spring regardless.
Sure.
So I'm watching that. So is Aaron DeRocha, who's does the Woodbury inspections for the city of Woodbury through the Washington Conservation
Isn't that
District.
particular site getting 3 ponds?
It has infiltration basins.
okay.
It has wetlands surrounding it. It has remember there was a trail that there was a variance for the trail.
Okay.
So it's kind of shoehorned into this difficult site on the corner of Settlers Ridge Parkway and Hudson.
Right.
Road. So that'll be starting up here pretty soon. So I've been just monitoring that where they're at. And then the other one, Project Wrangler, which is the Amazon site on Hudson Road. That one, they won't start till spring. They may go in and put erosion control in place. But basically, they're waiting for frost to be out before they start moving dirt there, so. Or the difference, I think, with the Karen Drive site is that they have a huge stockpile. They're actually not excavating, they're spreading material out, so they can put a rock entrance in and get their equipment staged for spring and move some dirt around because they're basically have to use the stockpile that's there for their first stage. It's gonna go in 2 stages on the building, so. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Good. Find ways to keep yourself busy, I gather.
I've got plenty to do. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Inspector. Let's move on. Managers, the legislative event. I have one comment on this or a question. Did Vice President have a chance to write an invitation by chance?
I have not. I apologize.
That's okay.
My excuse is I had to go down to St. Louis for a conference and I gave a presentation at the conference. But I've been thinking about it. And I think I can go pretty quick. So I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
That would help me, right? That would be, what should go as content in the invitation? Someone else suggests that we present to them the big things on our plate. Suggest that the first one be chlorides because Minnesota Watershed has already made that one of their legislative priorities.
Right.
So that's basically a no-brainer.
Seems to please, John.
Mr. President, managers, I did distribute some draft talking points for the watersheds to put together. And so I think some of the talking points in there could be useful and got in a presentation.
Why, how utterly convenient. Thank you, sir. So
Minnesota Watersheds Board will be talking about these, I think, on the 7th or a meeting coming up.
So what I'm thinking is, if it's all right with you, Vice President, that you use this wonderful information to address and that you use this information to draft that invitation and give us some feedback either at the next meeting, if that's not too late, and if that's all right with you, of course. And then we can give feedback on that.
Mhm.
Or if we need to do it sooner, to provide us with, email information, and then we can comment
Sure.
individually.
So let me give you my thoughts on this right away. Everything on the second page from support grant work with all of this region,
Okay,
primarily region one. We would agree with that, John, so that would, I mean, they're gonna get this handout anyways if they go to
Yeah.
the event on the 19th, so.
but,
So, yeah, there's a lot there on chloride, clean water legacy funding, that's a no-brainer. Now, the first topic is one that is becoming a pretty large one, and we've had, well, there were 2 meetings with DNR. I made it to the second one, and it was a little rough, and then there was a meeting with PCA on 401 certification. That went a lot better than the DNR meeting. But this is starting to heat up.
okay,
And, you know, what we're suggesting to the DNR is that let's sit down and pursue statute change together, because what's going on with the permitting thing in the DNR is they have 60 days to make a decision on a permit if there's no EIS required for it. Where things are really bogging down back and forth, what John Jassy calls, you get the slow roll funnel, is at what point do they determine a project, the project application. It's when they say, okay, your permit application is now complete, then that 60-day clock starts. It's getting to a stage where the permit is complete is in a number of cases. That's kind of the issue. We haven't had that happen here. So I don't know if we want to, if we're going to talk to our people here, our elected officials in our watershed district, do we want to talk about issues that are going on elsewhere?
my take on this is that before we even get there, do they know if we exist? And I'm not
Sure, yeah.
being a smart aleck on that. And number one, essentially a presentation. So if they got an idea of where we're at, and this is what I want to talk to our commissioners about, especially our new ones, regarding what we're doing, what is important to us.
Yeah.
What we're spearheading, and certainly chloride, and and we're keeping it light, and otherwise, what do we have?
So I agree with you completely that we need to educate them about, especially the new ones that that don't know what it is and what we do. And so I had chlorides down, and then, I mean, you don't want to have them drinking from a firehouse. Let's pick one or two others. And I put down our landlocked basin challenge.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
And then if we do get a chance to meet with them, and then we could say through a permitting process on all the other things we do whatever we can to help to improve water quality as part of our permitting program. We assist lakes with issues pertaining to invasive species and things. That would not be in the invite. In the invite, we put a couple of hot topics, so that would be chlorides and landlocked basins.
That's simple enough, and that appealing to you folks.
No, I think those are two top ones.
Okay, so hopefully, and then we'll encourage them to come to the whatever the event is on the 19th, more like an open house type thing. There isn't an agenda for that. The DNR commission is going to speak, the JASC and a few others. We're already hearing from a bunch of them saying, oh, we have conflicts because of committee hearings. That always happens. So then we stated, if you can come on the 19th, that'd be great. Otherwise, if you have time on the 20th, we could schedule some time in your office to come and meet with you. So I blocked the 20th. I don't know that we all need the church in there,
No.
but you know, whoever whoever's free. I just block the day in case.
Mhm. I wonder about the shenanigans that are going on in the House in terms of, the boycott and,
Yeah,
that's
an issue.
Yeah,
knock on wood, hopefully it gets resolved by the night.
because of the even split.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I bring it up more just to be aware of, think
sure.
about it in connection to this.
Yeah.
More than to try to take any action or, plan
Yeah.
how we would respond, because who knows what'll happen.
So
I guess one impact might be that they're a lot more busy if everybody's back in session than they normally would be.
that's a good point. So by our next meeting, which is what, the 13th February? Is that too late to apply for registration or anything? If any of us decide to attend beyond what our vice president is gonna do?
I don't recall if there's a deadline for registration. I would guess it's probably not too late for this event.
So then what we could do is bring this up again. If that's not too much trouble. At the meeting and see where we stand, and then we can be more serious, so to speak, or more focused about what we're going to do. Does that seem appealing?
Yeah, then that just gives us a week to the 20th, but to then respond to an invitation.
That can't be hard, And if they're gonna be busy, and I think you're right
Yeah.
with everything you said, Rick, that they might go, well, who are you? And I'm not.
Yeah, we'll be
One of
lucky
them.
if we get one or two. I did it with South Washington and Carla met us and
Really?
two other people met us, yeah.
Okay.
Carla had targets from shooting with her husband in her, hanging in her office wall. You would have been right at home. And
Carl, look at that. Arrest him.
anyways,
Kidding. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, related to this, with the notification for tonight's meeting, there's a email distribution list that it goes to, and I sent it to new Commissioner Cox with Washington County,
Right.
and she responded back that she had a conflict for tonight's meeting, wasn't able to attend, but asked for the dates of the future meetings, and she's hopeful in attending the future meeting. I provided that information to her and also said that if she'd like to meet for coffee or lunch with members of the board, I could coordinate that.
that'd be great.
Want to get in on that because I want to. Yeah.
That might be
We don't have a
worthwhile for
quorum, right?
Commissioner Miller as well.
Counselor, as long as we don't have a quorum, right? Aha,
Yeah, but I think you still have to be careful. Cause there's that one case that said like two was enough to,
okay.
But there's open meeting law, and then there's also the interpretation and the perception of it.
So I think.
I mean,
That's all right with you.
That's what I heard at the conference was pretty much notice everything wherever there's more than one manager gonna be there. I don't know why.
Wow.
So in the
Yeah.
past, when South Washington and Washington
Right.
District did social stuff together, we said, we're not posting this, and we're not talking about Watershed District stuff.
Yeah, that seems simple enough, whatever. In our defense.
Yeah.
So for sure, we'll try to set that up with the president, the vice president. And Commissioner Cox, and then I want to have a private meeting with you, John, about that and some issues. So, and I brought that up this week with Pat.
And then I'll get the letter out in about a week, and I'll send it to you and you, so I don't have to worry about open meeting law by sending it to utility managers. Then we can dot the i's and cross the t's. I'll put some track changes in there to keep it.
I like.
I like that.
I like.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We're squared away on that. We know what we're going to do. And so now, Rick, you got the floor. What's going on here?
They do?
John, the indebtedness notice.
Sure, Annually, the Watershed District's required to submit a report of outstanding indebtedness. I can say that.
Or indebtedness.
Since you have a bond, you
Right?
didn't have a bond, you're gonna have to do this. And so including your packets is the form, it's the same for Ramsey and Washington County. Washington County provides a form, Ramsey County doesn't, so I just changed the
Cool.
name. But it's due by February first. And the requested action is to authorize Treasurer Gelman to sign the form.
And my thinking on it is that having it at this meeting and making it available to people just makes it a little more transparent.
I agree.
In terms of
Yeah.
what our activities are, how, how indebted we are and.
I remember giving my blessing, but I agree with you that that's the right thing to do. So, yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So that's all we need to do. That doesn't require anything.
Just authorize that.
Okay. So Rick, I know you, what needs to be done. Yes, sir.
So we need a motion for this?
I don't think we need a motion. As counselor.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I guess, does Rick need to sign these and submit them?
I need to,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think, to sign a version of it.
I think I would advise the managers to have a motion on this just because it's money related to the district. I just think anytime we're talking about actions with the treasurer, it should be formal motion practice.
You are on it. I love that. Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to authorize our treasurer, Rick Gelman, to sign the report of outstanding indebtedness, both for Washington and Ramsey County.
second.
Been moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen. Make that so. Counselor, thank you for that. You're here. That's why you're here. Thank goodness. Okay. With that said, the legislative event, we talked about that essentially. Right? So this last piece, we're gonna wait for Vice President Don to tell us what's going on there, and then we'll follow up with that. So will we have a quorum for the 13th and the 27th of February?
I'll just be back from Florida fishing the 13th.
I won't be here for the 13th. I will be here for the 27th.
Harley Wu Franzi?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wouldn't mind making the legislative event either, but I feel I may be so jet lagged on the 19th because I get back the 8th.
Well,
I expect.
all right, gentlemen, I appreciate that. One more item. Want to adjourn? Second. The moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank